Although E3 has come and gone, there's still much we could learn from the games that were shown that may not be apparent at first glance. And Nintendo Land is one of them, which is actually 12 games in one. Each one is based on one of Nintendo's many franchises and are designed to showcase the Wii U's gamepad in some novel way. Now, although only a handful of the games have been announced, Nintendo actually released an image that reveals the icons for all 12. We already know about 5 of these because they were playable on the E3 show floor. The 5 games include Zelda Battle Quest, Luigi's Ghost Mansion, Animal Crossing Sweet Day, Donkey Kong's Crash Course, and Takemario's Ninja Castle. If that last one doesn't sound familiar, that's probably because Takemario is the main character from a game that was only ever released in Japan on the Famicom. Okay, now I'm not going to talk about any of those 5 since we've already covered them in our discussion video, which you can watch by clicking on one of the game's logos. So if we know what 5 of them are, what about the other 7? Luckily, Nintendo actually unveiled one more at a special Wii U event the first night of E3. And that game was F-Zero. Let's take a look at the footage they showed. As you can see, it actually looks like F-Zero, albeit a slower, tamed down version. Maybe that's why your hovercraft is a wind-up model. And it doesn't look like there's much actual competition out there, with the other vehicles instead acting more like obstacles than anything else. Unfortunately, we really don't know much else about it, including how exactly the gamepad is used. Perhaps it's a multiplayer game where one player steers the vehicle with a Wii remote while another can drop obstacles onto the track using the gamepad. Or what if your friend could actually create the track by drawing on the touchscreen at the same time that you're racing on it? There's a lot of potential here, we're just not sure which way Nintendo's going to take it. So that's 6 games down, but what about the other half? Nintendo hasn't revealed anything themselves, but we might be able to guess. You may have noticed that each icon so far has featured something related to the game series that the game is based on. So let's take a look what those icons might be and what games they represent. This yellow flower here looks like it was ripped right off a poor Pikmin's head, which means we're probably looking at a Pikmin game. This orange one might look weird at first, but on closer inspection it's a helmet that Samus wears. So yep, Metroid's here too. They probably don't need any help with this red one here, and it really shouldn't be any great surprise that Mario has his own game here as well. And it seems like Yoshi wants in on the fun as well, since that's his egg there. Now these last 2 icons are a little trickier. We think the silver one marks the return of the main antagonist from the classic Game & Watch game, Octopus. He since appeared in Super Smash Bros. Brawl as Mr. Game & Watch's final smash. It's odd that Nintendo decided to bring back a Game & Watch character of all their games, but we're also excited to see what they do with it. Lastly, we have this light blue icon which looks like a balloon, and we think that can mean only one thing, a game based on the NES title, Balloon Fight. Unlike the others, we really have no idea where they might go with this. Okay, so that's all 12 games, the 6 that are confirmed and the 6 that we can guess. Now, although I said we don't know anything about the 6 unannounced games, that may not be entirely true, because I think one of them might actually have been announced more than a year ago. Let me explain. At last year's E3, Nintendo didn't have any actual Wii U games to show, stressing the fact that everything we played is simply a concept and not intended to be a final game. That's all fine and dandy until we took a look and realized that wasn't actually the case at all, at least for a couple of them. One of these games is New Super Mario Bros. Me, which of course came back this year as New Super Mario Bros. U. Then there was a demo called Chase Me, in which 4 players on the TV worked together to capture a 5th player holding the gamepad who has a view of the entire map. And while the game itself seems to no longer exist, we can actually see remnants of it in 2 Nintendo Land games. Animal Crossing Sweet Day features similar 4 vs 1 split-screen gameplay, while the concept for Luigi's Ghost Mansion is even closer, only without the split-screen element. So clearly Nintendo didn't throw away the idea shown off last year, which brings us to a 3rd demo they showed called Battle Me. In this game, 2 people play on the TV as soldiers who work together to take down a 3rd player who controls a spaceship using the gamepad. But what made the game stand out were the references to Metroid, which included the Samus-like suits that the characters wore, complete with the ability to turn into a morph ball, and of course a spaceship which looks like a carbon copy of the one featured in the games. So knowing what we know now about Nintendo Land, it's very likely that its Metroid game will end up looking very similar to this. Okay, so that about covers our overview of the games themselves, but there's still a few small details I wanted to mention since a lot of people seem to have missed them. First of all, Nintendo confirmed at one of their E3 discussion events that Nintendo Land's games will change based on how many players you're playing with. So the game will change things up like the map size and difficulty depending on how many people are playing to keep things fair. Some of the games will offer a variety of ways to play by offering both competitive and cooperative multiplayer modes, in addition to a single player experience. Now let's take a look at what connects all these games together, the Central Plaza. If you look closely, you'll find all sorts of Nintendo goodies all over the place. Things like enemies from Pikmin, question blocks from Mario, moblins from Zelda, Yoshi, Ridley from Metroid, and when you look at that, the same Samus ship we mentioned earlier. These statues, like the Blue Falcon here, can all be purchased using coins you earn by playing the games and beating challenges. Speaking of the Blue Falcon, because its statue seems to be identical to the one in Nintendo Land's F-Zero game, this likely means that Samus' ship is as well. Which again just further supports the idea that Battle Me is now the Metroid game. In fact, it seems like a lot of the statues are representations of what's in the games themselves, like the aforementioned moblins and this bird, which are both in Zelda Battle Quest. Based on this, we speculate that the Pikmin creatures we saw earlier might be a key part of the Pikmin game, especially since a small Bulborb appears to have a meat-sized hole on top, suggesting you might be riding them around. In a similar vein, it looks like we might be riding mechanical Yoshis in the Yoshi game. Now if we look at the background of this scene, you might notice that there's an under construction sign for what appears to be the Pikmin game. And if we take a look at this train scene, we can see similar signs for the Mario, Balloon Fight, and Yoshi games. This might mean that not all the games are available from the get-go. Maybe you actually have to use the coins you've earned to unlock additional attractions. Or perhaps the game forces you to play through them in a set order to teach you different uses of the gamepad. Moving on, there's one final thing we noticed. As you can tell, it's daytime in this scene, as it was in every scene shown from Nintendo Wii U's developer discussion. But the footage shown during the press conference revealed both evening and night scenes as well. This could mean that the time of day you play the game at is also reflected in Nintendo Land, like Animal Crossing. And the fact that the game's producer, Katsuya Iguchi, has also either directed or produced every Animal Crossing to date strongly suggests this is the case. And what self-respecting theme park would be complete without its own nightly fireworks display? But we all know this happens every night, like at Disneyland, or only for special occasions. And with that, we're done covering everything we could dig up on Nintendo Land. But if you want more, remember to watch our Nintendo Land video discussion for an in-depth look at each of the 5 games that were playable on the show floor. And as always, let us know if you missed anything by posting in the comments. Alright, well thanks for watching, and make sure to stay tuned to GameXplain.com for more on Nintendo Land and everything gaming.